How much do you know about Korea? Well, for sure you know that there are two of them. The Good Korea and the Bad Korea. Just kidding. North Korea and South Korea. But how much do you know about each Korea? Let's start with the South. They have big cities, lots of technology, beauty shops, professional nerds, I mean gamers, markets with lots of food, and obviously, K-pop. But don't let yourself be taken in by North Korea. They also have catchy music. Speak of the devil. Here's Kim Jong-un. As far as we know him, he likes two things: communism and nuclear weapons. In North Korea, they love propaganda. Bucolic one. Look at this beauty. Although we hear few things about this nation, sometimes you can read some interesting headlines. Now, let's see why there are two Koreas. Believe it or not, Korea used to be a united nation. They share their culture, their language, their history. Korean monarchs had repelled every attempt of invasion for centuries. But things got worse in the 20th century. After the Russo-Japanese War of 1905, Japan focused its attention on Korea. The Korean Emperor Goyeon asked for help. He had signed a treaty with the United States some years before, and President Roosevelt should help him. However, Roosevelt refused, because he had interest on the Philippines and he didn't want Japan to meddle in these issues. Korean people felt betrayed, and no wonder. Japan established its protectorate, and they remained under Japanese control for 35 years. In 1910, Japan incorporated Korea to its empire as a colony. Koreans were forced to work and to join up the Japanese army, therefore they had to participate in the world wars. The Japanese control came to an end in 1945, when Japan was defeated in the Second World War. Not long after, Soviet troops entered Korea and occupied the northern area of the 38th parallel. The south was occupied by American troops. Nevertheless, the Allied forces of both sides withdrew with time. Far from recovering its unity, Korea was divided. The south was controlled by Syngman Rhee, who was supported by the United Nations, but mainly by the United States. In the north, the communist leader Kim Il-sung was in control, supported by the Soviet Union and China. Both of them wanted to reunite Korea under their own ideology. On June 25, following Kim Il-sung's commands, the 38th parallel was crossed by the North Korean People's Army, which marked the beginning of the Korean War. The United Nations tried to stop the attack, but the North Koreans went on. Truman, the then President of the United States, considered this a critical situation, and he called the only man who could solve it. South Korean troops had withdrawn to Busan. North Korean army had occupied almost the whole country. But then, in September 1950, MacArthur led a massive amphibious landing on Incheon. Thanks to this attack, Seoul was recovered, and North Korean army was pushed back across the 38th parallel. At that point, a decision had to be made. What was better, keeping the position or halting communist advance? MacArthur was clear about it. His army kept gaining ground. But then something happened. When the United Nations Army was arriving at the Chinese border in October, China responded, as its leader Mao Zedong had warned. MacArthur suggested using nuclear weapons against China, but the American government refused. It was the wrong war, at the wrong place, at the wrong time, and with the wrong enemy. Because of his attitude, MacArthur was dismissed. After Chinese and North Korean advance, the battleground remained around the 30th parallel. In June 1951, the Soviet Union suggested a ceasefire. Negotiations began, but due to the disagreements about the fate of the prisoners of war, it was not until July 1953 that the armistice was signed. Nowadays, the relationship between the two Koreas is not as bad as it used to be, but it could be better. In 2018, the current leader of North Korea, Kim Jong-un, and the president of South Korea, Moon Jae-in, gathered to revisit the truce of 1953. They promised that the Korean War will end someday. North Korea is one of the most militarized nations in the world, and since the armistice, their leaders have threatened with nukes and menaced South Korea and other countries, such as the United States. For this reason, in South Korea, military service is still compulsory, and there are several headquarters with American troops. Kim Jong-un has also met other important leaders who long for a treaty of peace between the two Koreas. For example, he gifted Vladimir Putin a sword. That's true confidence. He also met Donald Trump, even after exchanging good words. Jokes aside, the truth is that the Korean War has not ended yet, but we hope it happens this century.